The Minnesota Vikings' five biggest needs this offseason. So the Vikings have already got rid of Mike Zimmer. We're looking to a new head coach. Vikings got rid of Rick Spielman, looking to a new GM. We are officially in rebuilding mode for the Minnesota Vikings, and we're going to take a look at five biggest needs this offseason. Those five biggest needs are in free agency and in the draft. Starting us off at number 5, quarterback. Okay, you might hate me. Kirk Cousins had a great year. He had an excellent year. That's all the more reason why you should trade him away. He has one more year left on his contract. The Vikings have a couple options here. Number one, the Vikings could extend Kirk Cousins. He has one more year left on his contract. You got rid of your head coach. You got rid of your GM. Now you got to get rid of your quarterback. You're going into a rebuilding phase. This is not a reloading phase. You are going into a rebuilding phase. You have to look to a new franchise guy at quarterback. So the few options are Kirk Cousins, extend him. Absolutely not. The Vikings should not extend Kirk Cousins. We did that last time. Did we forget what we brought Kirk Cousins in here for? We brought Kirk Cousins into this team to win us a Super Bowl. It's been 4 years, 4 years, 0 division titles, 1 playoff appearance in those 4 years. Come on, guys. Really? You think Kirk Cousins is actually going to bring us to a Super Bowl? I get it. He's a great quarterback, and that's why you should trade him away, because great quarterbacks get you like 2 first-round draft picks. I believe it was it Carson Wentz? Yeah, Carson Wentz. He didn't even have a good year. But Carson Wentz, I think they gave away first-round draft pick for Carson Wentz even. Kirk is much better than Carson Wentz. Maybe we can get 2 first-round draft picks from him. From the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos are a quarterback away from competing. Maybe they'll take him. I mean, Pittsburgh Steelers, Big Ben's not going to be there anymore. They're going to not have very good draft pick. They just made the playoffs. They're going to be easy out against the Chiefs. But again, that's another option. There's a lot of options, trade destinations for Kirk Cousins to go. Number 1 is extending him. Number 2 is trading him. And then number 3, playing him under his 2022 contract. I'd be fine with the Vikings playing Kirk Cousins one more year. Just one more year as a transitional guy moving into maybe a future quarterback at for the Minnesota Vikings. I'd be fine with that. Kirk Cousins has one more year left in his contract. Just do not extend Kirk. That is all I'm asking. And now that Rick Spielman is not here, Vikings are not going to extend Kirk Cousins. They're either going to play him under this one last year where he's making $45 million, or they're going to trade him away. I would love to see a trade happen. And then Sean Mannion's also an unrestricted free agent. No, the Vikings should not bring Sean Mannion back. Now that Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer are gone, I think it's a no-brainer. Sean Mannion is retiring. He's never going to get another opportunity in the NFL. Kirk Cousins should be traded away. That's number 5. I would love to see the Vikings bring in a quarterback in free agency, maybe Marcus Mariota. Okay, Marcus Mariota is a quarterback who deserves another shot in the NFL. Marcus Mariota, backup quarterback with the Las Vegas Raiders the last 2 seasons, lost his starting job in Tennessee. I mean, he's not at a good career so far. He deserves another opportunity in the NFL. He's still a younger guy and can get that starting role with the Minnesota Vikings. I would love to see the Vikings bring in Marcus Mariota, and I'd love really any option in free agency other than Cam Newton for the Minnesota Vikings. Number 4, Minnesota Vikings need interior offensive line. It feels like every year we're talking about this, but the Vikings inside offensive line was terrible this year, and I don't think we're giving this enough hate, because the interior offensive line for the Vikings all year have been awful, other than Ezra Cleveland at guard. I'm looking specifically at the center and right guard position here, because Oli Udoh was just a penalty machine all year long. Should not have another year starting at right guard. Garrett Bradbury was doing nothing for the Minnesota Vikings at center. He was getting beat by a lot of inside defensive linemen. Not only that, but he was not allowing any run game from Dalvin Cook. You guys forget how good Dalvin Cook was. He was running into brick walls all year long. The Vikings tried to run the ball up the middle and was running into brick walls. Dalvin Cook is not a power back. He's an excellent running back. He's great at cutting back. He's great at just about everything other than powering through guys. That's his only problem, and that's what Garrett Bradbury has done wrong. That's what Oli Udoh has done wrong. I mean, our offensive line is not very good for the Minnesota Vikings. And not only that, but we have a lot of players expected to hit free agency this year or next year. Mason Cole's backup center and right guard has started at both positions this year so far, is an unrestricted free agent this year. Same goes for Dakota Dozier. Now, Dakota Dozier, who really wants to bring him back? But Mason Cole's a player you have to bring back as a backup center and backup right guard. Maybe a starter in 2022 or 2023 or somewhere to fill in, because also center Garrett Bradbury and right guard Oli Udoh are set to hit free agency in 2022, meaning they have one more year left in the contract. So Minnesota Vikings have to bring in more interior offensive line. I'd love to see more of Wyatt Davis. Wyatt Davis is another name we have to see play at right guard. Outside of that, Mason Cole, you got to bring him back as a backup center. He did play better than we expected, but again, it's still not Still doesn't look like starting material for the Vikings. I would like to see the Vikings bring him back. That's why we traded with the Arizona Cardinals so we can get him. And having him as a backup center and right guard would be a relief for the Vikings in 2022 and beyond. Because Vikings are not going to bring back Garrett Bradbury. Garrett Bradbury has been, let's face it, he's a bust. He is a first round bust, one of the many first round busts for the Minnesota Vikings, and should not be a center more than one more year with his Vikings team. So after this next year, hopefully we can see some other players start at center and right guard, because right guard is just every year right guard has been bad. Oli Udoh was a penalty machine all year. Year before that, it was who did we have? Drew Samia was starting year before that. That was even worse than Oli Udoh. And then year before that, didn't we have Pat Elflein? I mean, we've had some bad guards, and hopefully whoever our GM is going to be knows how to draft offensive linemen, because if there's one thing Rick Spielman was not good at, it was drafting and developing the offensive linemen, because our offensive line has been terrible. And it feels like every draft pick we've taken on offensive linemen, other than Brian O'Neill, have been busts. Pat Elflein was a bust. Garrett Bradbury is becoming a bust. I mean, who knows about Christian Darrisaw? It was only his rookie year, but even him, he's been a little lackluster this season as well. It just doesn't look good with the Minnesota Vikings when it comes to drafting and developing offensive linemen, which is why interior O-line, specifically center and right guard, is a big need for the Minnesota Vikings this offseason. Number 3, we have tight end. Now, tight ends, just about all of our tight ends who played this year is going to be unrestricted free agents this year. Tyler Conklin, who started all 16 games with the Vikings, is set to hit free agency this year. Same goes for Chris Herndon, who the Vikings traded away a 4th-round draft pick. Terrible trade for the Vikings with the Jets. And then Luke Stocker also set to hit free agency this year. Now, Luke Stocker shouldn't be in the NFL, but when it comes to Chris Herndon and Tyler Conklin, are both solid tight end 2s with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Chris Herndon is not going to return with the team. We're going to count him out, because no way does he want to play with a team that does not respect him. Now, Tyler Conklin's a player we have to bring back. Obviously, going into 2022, Irv Smith Jr. is going to be our starting tight end. He missed this year with a meniscus injury, but will be our starting tight end in 2022. We need someone to play alongside him, and we need a tight end 3. Tyler Conklin's a great tight end 2. I'd love to bring him back. He had an excellent season. I loved how Clint Kubiak used him in this offense. Now, I'm not a Clint Kubiak guy. I hate Clint Kubiak as a play caller, but I liked how he did use Tyler Conklin into this offense, and it would be a great tight end duo between Irv Smith Jr. and Tyler Conklin. When it comes to the tight end 3 role, that is a big need for the Minnesota Vikings, and we're likely going to have to wait till the draft, because the Vikings only have $7 million in cap space. That's one of the worst in the NFL, so it doesn't look very bright for this Vikings offseason when it comes to signing big name players in free agency. We're not going to see any Chandler Jones or some big name player that we could use on our team. We're not going to see that in free agency, because the Vikings just simply don't have the money. We don't even have the money to bring back all of our players. Anthony Barr is going to hit free agency. We might see Patrick Peterson go back to free agency. I mean, there's a lot of names that are set to hit free agency that really the Vikings cannot afford, but one player we can afford is Tyler Conklin, and it would be great to bring him back as a tight end alongside Irv Smith Jr. And then going for a tight end 3, I don't know what happened to Zach Davidson. I mean, Zach Davidson, I think he was a 5th-round draft pick out of Central Michigan or Central Missouri. Where has he been? I mean, he didn't play a single snap his entire rookie season, and the Vikings were short on tight ends the entire season. I don't know what happened to Zach Davidson. He was also going to be our backup punter. I mean, the Vikings drafted him and just forgot about him. I think he was on our practice squad the entire year. I don't know why he was not on the active roster, because the Vikings were very thin at the tight end position. Number 2, big need, big gap between 3 and 2, outside linebacker. You guys, outside linebacker does not look good when it comes to next year. I mean, we have Anthony Barr and Nick Vigil. Anthony Barr's contract was voided and will hit free agency, and the Vikings will not bring back Anthony Barr, especially now that Mike Zimmer is not here. Anthony Barr will not return with the Minnesota Vikings and will play somewhere else, start somewhere else in the NFL. On top of that, our other starter, Nick Vigil, is unrestricted free agent, was brought here on a 1-year contract after playing for the Cincinnati Bengals, and now is going to hit free agency, and the Vikings have an option of bringing him back, but still the Vikings will need outside linebacker. This is a big need for the Vikings, because outside of this, if both these players don't return with the team, we have Blake Lynch and Chaz Surratt. Okay, the Vikings will have the worst outside linebackers in the NFL. Eric Kendricks will need to completely carry this linebacker group if the Vikings want to compete. So, outside linebacker, the Vikings will not bring back Anthony Barr and might bring back Nick Vigil. It doesn't really matter, but outside linebacker is a large, very big need for this Vikings team. What I want to see is the Vikings to actually bring Eric Wilson back on our team, because Eric Wilson, who stepped in for Anthony Barr in the 2020 season, was a highlight on our Vikings defense. He was one of the only players in this Vikings defense who looked good in the 2020 season when he stepped in for Anthony Barr. I'd like to see him return with the team, but thank you, Anthony Barr. Anthony Barr had great years. I believe he was with the Vikings for 7, 8 years, something like that. Thank you, Anthony Barr. He was actually Mike Zimmer's first draft pick ever. So they built a good relationship. And now that Zimmer's gone, Barr's not going to return. I loved Barr on our team. However, I wish him the best of luck wherever he goes in the future. Same goes for Mike Zimmer. He'll likely be a defensive coordinator somewhere. And the biggest need for the Minnesota Vikings in this offseason, in free agency, in the draft, undoubtedly, year after year, is on this list, and that is cornerback. It's every year. I mean, the Vikings just always need cornerbacks. No matter what happens, Vikings can use 10 first-round draft picks on cornerbacks and will still need more cornerbacks. All 3 starting corners that we started this 2020-2021 season with are not going to be with the team. Patrick Peterson is set to hit free agency. Rashad Breeland was already cut. Mackenzie Alexander is also set to hit free agency. And the Vikings should do what they can to bring back Patrick Peterson. I would love to bring Pat P back. You look at it, though, $7 million only in cap space. It's going to be hard. Patrick Peterson's going to have to come back on veteran minimum. Does he really want to play with the Vikings that bad to come back on veteran minimum to a team that looks like they're in a rebuilding phase? Don't know if he wants to do that. If he does, thank you. I would love to have Patrick Peterson back on veteran minimum. That would be great to see. And him playing alongside maybe a new rookie or something. Even if we bring Pat Pete back, we got to look to a new cornerback. We do, because our cornerback room is awful. It sucks to see what happened with Jeff Gladney. Mackenzie Alexander had a terrible season. Rashad Breeland had an even worse season. So both these players should not and will not return with the team. Patrick Peterson would be a nice player to come back as a cornerback 1 because we have Devontae Adams in our division. We have Allen Robinson in our division. Now, Allen Robinson will likely not return with the Bears, though, but still, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown in our division now. So we have some tough matchups that we need a good cornerback, a good veteran cornerback like Patrick Peterson to go up against these opposing offenses. We need cornerback. Cornerback bad. And it feels like every year the Vikings draft a cornerback in the first round. Now with our new regime, whoever is going to be our new head coach, whoever is going to be our new GM, hopefully they can realize that drafting cornerback in the first round is actually a good thing. Because you Vikings fans don't realize. I see a lot of Vikings fans that's like, the Vikings better not draft another cornerback in the first round because it never works. Corner is that position. It is such an important position. It is that position where you have to continue to throw draft capital at it. You have to continue to swing at cornerbacks until you finally hit. Because the Vikings haven't had a good cornerback since Xavier Rhodes. I'm going to be completely honest. All of our other draft picks, Trey Waynes was a bust. Mackenzie Alexander was a bust. Mike Hughes was a bust. I mean, we just continue to miss on corners, but it is that important of a position where you have to continue to swing. Too bad the Vikings aren't drafting in the top 10. There was that one corner that I wanted the Vikings to get, but after the Vikings beat the Bears, destroyed the Bears on Sunday's game, we're not picking in the top 10, and now the Bears have the 6th overall pick. That's what I wanted to have around that 6th overall pick. The Vikings would be in a lot better of a position. Now we're sitting at 14. Might have to take a safety. Might have to take that safety off the board at 14. I'd still be fine with that. I didn't mention safety on this list. Those are my top 5 positions that the Vikings needed. I didn't mention safety. That's another big need for the Vikings. I mean, we have defensive end as another need for the Vikings, even wide receiver. We have a lot of needs on this Vikings team, which is why 2022 does not look very bright. Vikings will likely miss the playoffs again in 2022, but the future for this Vikings team looks bright. If we can bring in the right head coach, the right offensive-minded head coach, Brian Daboll, Kellen Moore, we just need a hit on a head coach. That's all I'm asking. Even Brian Flores, I'd be fine with at this point. Byron Leftwich, literally anybody with the name Byron or Byron, I'd be fine with. Bring in those players for our team, and then alongside them, a GM, get a franchise quarterback. That's asking for a lot, but maybe if you can get a franchise quarterback, Vikings are set in the future to finally compete for a Super Bowl, get their first Super Bowl title. This is what we're asking for from this Vikings team. But a terrible season, a good end to the season, was beating the Bears and firing Mike Zimmer. Feels good, Vikings team, to finally move on from the Zimmer and Spielman era, look to a new era for this team, and that's what we're going to talk about this offseason on this podcast. All Vikings moves, all news Vikings. We will be there. Hope you all tune in for that.